Hi, my name is Barry Sterling Mitchell. I produce the Sterling Net Point Power Rankings and the Bias Plus reports, and this is Ben and Barry on football.
Yes, hello out there, everyone. This is Ben Dickerson, your co-host. Any and everything about football is what we do on top of the power rankings, which we'll really be getting into pretty soon because the season will be starting pretty soon. Only got a couple more preseason games, right?
Yep, 1 out of 3 down. So we had preseason weekend this weekend, and you had a chance to look at your team, the Giants. I had a chance to look at my team, the Niners. Before we get on our teams, though, was there anything that you saw that was noteworthy?
Well, I will say this. I don't know if I want to call anything I see in the preseason noteworthy because anybody that knows me knows that I don't really, I want to say this properly. I don't really like the preseason. I don't put a whole lot of stock into the preseason team wise, but I do player wise. I like to see young players make an impression on the teams that they're on and on their fans. That I enjoy. I like to see these undrafted free agent dudes show off a little bit, make a big play here and there, get their names called out. I do enjoy that part of the preseason. But as far as trying to analyze how the teams look or try to predict how the teams are going to be by watching preseason, I don't put much stock in that. It's funny, I saw an interesting statistic. The Baltimore Ravens haven't lost a preseason game since like 2018 or something. So, so what?
21 straight, I believe.
Yeah, but other than that, I was impressed by a few things or a few players during the last week of preseason games. Yes.
Okay. So, let me mention. I'll throw one thing out there that was obviously impressive. We had an 82-yard punt from a guy that they call the punt guy.
Holy smokes!
He got a good bounce, and there was nobody down there from his team that could cover it and keep it from going into the end zone. So it only netted out to about 60-some yards once you took it back out to the 20. But apparently this guy uncorks these things enough to have a reputation for doing it. I'm like, holy mackerel, okay. Not like it. So that was one thing that was interesting.
And let's remember, punter is one of those positions where teams don't look for depth. You got one punter. So if this guy's trying to get himself a job, he's off to a great start. And this is a young dude, right? This wasn't a veteran guy.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he's a rookie or not. He might be a rookie.
That's what I'm talking about. Talk about impressive.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
We did a show before we did the Best Job in the NFL Backup Quarterback Series. We did the Brain Trust. And when we did the Brain Trust, I kept thinking about those shows while we were watching some of the preseason because there were some questions about, like with the Patriots, who's the defensive coordinator? We asked that question a month and a half or 2 months ago. We wondered what's going on with them. And then you had
we talked about that team, and we talked about it. Did you happen to go back and take a look at the video?
Our video?
Yeah.
I didn't get a chance to do that, no.
Okay, because I'd like to go back and revisit how we approached that situation in comparison to what it is now.
I literally pulled the videos up. I just didn't have time, to really go back because you're absolutely right. We went back, we looked at the trades, who left, who stayed, and the drafts, pieces that they got. So I kept thinking about that while I'm watching the preseason games because so many names, we covered so much, so many names. I was kind of more focused on our backup quarterback stuff.
Okay.
So of the backup quarterbacks that we talked about, was there any that stood out to you?
I was slightly impressed. I don't want to say greatly impressed because I understand that these guys aren't always working with the number one offense. But Jared Stidham
Yeah.
kind of stood out for me. And here's a guy who comes over to the Raiders from the Patriots, along with his offensive coordinator with the Patriots, who is now the head coach of the Raiders. Okay. Talk about a guy that's in a position to succeed. I mean, Josh McDaniels didn't bring him for no reason.
You know what I'm saying? Yes, he did look good. There was one thing that ran through my mind as I watched some of the quarterbacks take off and run. And
some of them shouldn't have done it.
Well, you score on a run from the red zone.
Okay.
Everybody's excited because you score, and great, great, great. But I have like 2 or 3 rules about running quarterbacks.
Oh, here we go. We're going to make this, we're going to do a whole show on this. Barry's rules.
There's only 2 or 3. Okay. There was 3 yesterday, and then I couldn't remember the third.
Okay. All right. Go ahead. Hit me.
So the first one is the play breaks down.
Okay.
Got to run. Okay.
Okay.
Not exactly a positive, but you got to do what you got to do. Okay. That's one. Number two, an opportunity opens up. That's just, you'd be dumb not to take it. You get in a situation, you drop back, the defense is in a man, and all of your players are running to that side. And
all the D-backs have their backs turned.
They got their backs turned, and the defensive end falls down. And you got nothing but green grass. You better. Right. You could take 30. It's like a pass. Why even throw the ball? So there's a couple times when I think you should run, But when you see a lot of running, and a lot of times I just think, okay, you didn't see the field, And I've seen guys run, and they're running, and guys are open. I saw guys open in the end zone with guys running, and I'm like, So the whole thing about the dual threat quarterback running, I think is a situation where I don't think we should be running as that much. I think those 2 reasons are good reasons. There was a third that'll come to me at some point, but I don't know if the play in these cases, since we're in the preseason, I don't think necessarily the play broke down, and I don't think it necessarily was a great opportunity. It was, you look up, things is looking like this, you see an opportunity and you go. You know what I mean? You're not necessarily seeing the field. And I know we've had a conversation before where I was saying it seems to me that guys throw a ball into a low probability scenario, like, man's double covered. The guy catches it, everybody's super excited. It was a great play, blah, blah, blah. But it was 3 guys opened up underneath that you could have thrown it to and been very effective with. And that's what I think happens way too often. So that's what I'm keeping an eye out. Jared Stidham, absolutely. Malik Willis.
Not bad. Not bad. Now, Stidham's been in the league for a year or 2, and he's been a backup on the Patriots. Willis is a rookie. So we'll separate them like that. When we do that, and Willis also is a dual threat quarterback, which you just got finished talking about. I thought he did well.
I thought he did pretty well too. And I'm giving, the rookies, if they run because they got to run, things aren't quite, they got to say, okay, it's first preseason game. You know what I mean? Do what you got to do. But there's a risk, as we saw with the Jets.
Always a risk, bro.
There's a Jets. What the hell was he doing? Okay.
Now, he's not a dual threat quarterback by my definition. He can run, but he's not a dual threat quarterback. Now, the particular play that he got hurt on, would you say in his eyes possibly it was a breakdown in the play and he just wanted to get positive yardage? On the surface, that's how it looked. He didn't see anybody open. he felt the pressure and he took off. He saw an opening and he took off.
I didn't so much have a challenge with or a problem with the fact that he ran.
Okay.
But he reminded me of Garoppolo when Garoppolo injured his knee. You had it out of bounds. You got what you need on the first down.
Just get on out.
Just get on out.
Right.
Especially in a preseason game and you're the
Right.
starter.
Absolutely.
This is not the time to be breaking back inside.
We don't usually agree on this, folks. We don't usually agree on conversations like this, but I'm 100% with him on this one.
Amazing. Okay. All right. So we kind of agree on that. Let's quickly talk about Kenny Pickett.
Kenny Pickett. That reminds me of something else, but I'll bring that up later.
Okay.
Kenny Pickett was fairly impressive. Kenny Pickett, to me, looks like he could be a threat to Mason Rudolph for sure. And Trubisky's leash is getting a little tiny bit shorter. Not a lot. Because all things being equal, I'm sure that the Patriots brass wants Trubisky to be the starter. And they want Kenny Pickett. That's what I meant, the Steelers brass. And they want Pickett to sit for a year. I'm sure of it. That's what they would want to happen. But they also want to be sure, or as close to sure as possible, that if in fact something happens to Trubisky, mentally, physically, whatever, that Kenny Pickett is someone they can rely on to come in and be a positive impact on their offense. I'm not saying win a whole bunch of games and all that. I'm just saying, can we go to this guy if we have to? And it's just preseason, bro.
I'm hearing debates already
about starting. Really?
Let me tell you something. This is
I didn't hear that debate.
Let me tell you something. This is what I'm hearing. Really, what they're saying. The stadium erupted when he came on.
Dude, he's from the University of Pittsburgh. That's not fair. That's not fair.
That's what's going on.
He's been playing in that stadium for the last 4 years.
Exactly.
So that's going to happen.
Those people are juiced about Kenny. And let me just remind everybody, we took notice of Kenny Pickett when he was in college. And what do we call him? The fake slide guy.
That's what you call him. The fake slide guy. Here's the thing. That's not really fair to Trubisky. That's not. I need to see him get it done on the field. I understand the fans are going to love him. That's a given. The guy's from there. He's been playing there for the last 4 years in college. So obviously he's going to have the fans on his side. That's not fair to Trubisky. Whether he can outplay him or not still remains to be seen.
What wasn't fair was he went something like 5 for 5 in a touchdown in his drive.
Okay, well I'm more impressed by that than the fan. I could give a damn about the fan.
Well, maybe so, but the a lot of people took notice of how much energy was a part of him coming on. Okay, so Kenny Pickett played well. Ritter, you got a chance to see Ritter a little bit.
I like Desmond Ritter. I didn't get a chance to see that game.
Okay.
How'd he look? Tell me how he looked.
Yeah. Desmond Ritter looked like he can still use a little more work. He's a rookie. And once he kind of settled down a little bit, he got to work. And he looked good. Okay. He looked good. So who's in front of him now? Because you got 3 of those types of starters now. Mariota. So you got Mariota, you got Trubisky, and you got Wentz as 3 guys who are mobile quarterbacks who were in a backup situation, and now they have an opportunity to start. But they got some rookies behind them. Well, not going to make it comfortable.
I would say the guy that's in the most danger to me is probably Mariota, but it will depend on how well Ritter continues to play, because the Falcons are in a position where they don't have a whole lot to lose. You know what I mean? If it's close to even and they're not sure what to do and they want to go 2 or 3 games and they're still scratching their heads, then they're the team that's in the best position to say, screw it, throw the rookie in there.
Got a point. Got a point. So that's what I saw of those. Let me think now. Let's jump to the Giants. Tell me what you thought about that.
Okay. This is tough because the Giants are my team and I really, really want them to do well. But I'm not exactly sure how honest I would be with myself if, in fact, I came right out right now and said, I expect them to do well. They obviously have done their due diligence as far as trying to improve the offensive line, which was a must, which also was something that the previous general manager couldn't quite seem to get a grasp of. This new general manager, Mr. Shane, really has tried to do that. So I commend him for that. We want to give Daniel Jones every opportunity to prove himself, but he's only got this season to prove himself. Next year's quarterback draft, looking the way that it does, tells me that the leash on him is going to be extremely short. It's going to be 1 year short. And if he doesn't get it done with the improvement on the offensive line, with a healthy Saquon Barkley, then it's not going to be, he's going to have a hard time holding on to that job. What troubles me offensively for the Giants is the receiving core. I don't know. I don't see Darius Slayton being much better than he's been. Not that he was terrible, but I haven't seen any improvement. Kadarius Toney could be sneaky good this year, but I don't know that yet. Kenny Golladay almost looks like a bust. It looks like the Lions got over us on that trade. I don't know what happened to him on his way from Detroit to here, but he didn't score a freaking touchdown last season. Okay? That's unacceptable for a number 1 wide receiver. Totally unacceptable. No debate. Okay? So I don't know what to say about him right now. I really don't.
How'd you like your backup quarterback?
Oh, Tyrod.
Tyrod, yeah.
I tell you what. If Tyrod Taylor ends up starting, then that means Daniel Jones is done, and we're drafting a quarterback in the first round next year. That's it. Period. I got nothing else to say. As far as winning games, losing games, who the hell knows, man? It's Tyrod Taylor.
Okay.
Let me put it this way. Jacoby Brissett is better than Tyrod Taylor. And the Browns have a better team overall than the Giants, and they're still questioning whether they should bring in another quarterback. So what does that tell you about the Giants? I know that's kind of a weird way to put it, but if the Browns are playoff ready, you look at the Browns team, you're like, this is a really good team. If they make the right decision at quarterback, they can go a long way. And then you look at the Giants and say, we're not sure how good this team could be. They might be better. But if they get the right quarterback, I don't even know what to say.
All right.
I'm sorry I can't give you a better.
No. I mean, it is what it is. And it's the first game of the preseason. We're not trying to get too analytic here because, it's the first game of the preseason, You got a chance to see the Niner game?
Yes. I could probably speak on the Niners better than I can speak on my own damn team.
Well, go ahead then.
Oh, okay. Well, what I'll tell you what I see about the Niners, again, I use the same kind of analogy, except the Niners are a really good team, playoff ready team, playoff bound almost no matter what. and their success depends on their quarterback. But they don't have a if. They've made up their minds. Trey Lance is that guy, okay? And he has all the skills and is going to get all the opportunity to prove himself and lead a ready-made playoff-bound team. Nobody can screw it up but him.
So you see now why on Madden I've been playing with Trey Lance all along, don't you?
Yeah, but that's Madden. This is real life, okay?
Well, that's Madden
So that means nobody's pushing his button to get the best out of him every single play, every single game. It's on him.
Well, as I said to you, the question with him is going to be up here. How much, he was able to take in, know his playbook, understand the schemes, understand what they're trying to do, his communication. And apparently he's got a lot of that, that's in place. And of course, being a rookie, you expect him to grow continually, and still, you don't expect him to have it all. But that was the only difference that I saw. So like you said, when I was saying to you about Madden, when I look at the skill set, when they ranked his speed, his ability to throw deep, short, et cetera, I'm like, okay, I can work with this. You know what I mean? And I haven't played with Garoppolo. I can't even remember last time I played a game with Garoppolo, So then there was another thing that recently came out. And there was this whole thing, and I don't know why, but something about Garoppolo doing a disappearing act 2 or 3 or 4 times after he signed the big contract. They said after he signed the big contract, they couldn't reach him for like a while. Like apparently he does some kind of disappearing act.
When was this? Last year?
The articles are coming out now talking about like a year, 2 years ago, or over the last season or so.
Right.
And so you hadn't heard this apparently. I can, from the look on your face, like, what?
Right.
That was the look that I had too. And it was funny because I'm reading comments underneath of it on Twitter. It was on Twitter. And people were saying, why would the Niners leak this? Because that's only going to hurt his trade value. If there's a question about his commitment, you know what I mean? And things of that nature. So, and I don't know if the Niners released it. I don't know how it got out. But there was a question. And if you remember, there was Kittles had mentioned one time that, he was joking. Yeah, I tried to get in touch with Garoppolo. I sent him a tweet, but he's the worst tweeter. He never gets back to me or something like that. And people actually referenced that tweet. It's like, yeah, people are trying to get in touch with him, and they couldn't. So we'll put that one down for right now.
I don't put much stock in that.
Who's
trying to reach him? Who's trying to reach him? Media?
No, the coaches. The Niners team. Coaches.
During the season, before the season, off
season?
No,
I think it was off season. It was off season.
Okay. So?
But that's what some people said. It's off season. You're not, he doesn't have to answer the phone. Right. And he doesn't,
That's right.
But
what? Come on, man. Come on. The guy wins football games.
So there's a lot of guys that win football games. We want Super Bowls.
Okay. Did you lose the Super Bowl because of him? Or did you lose your opportunity to get to the Super Bowl because of Garoppolo?
Well, some people thought that we lost Super Bowl because of him.
Why? Because he plays late in the game?
And an opportunity to get to one is like in this last one against the Rams, where he kind of melted down a little bit near the end. But we might have melted down as a team. He was under a lot of pressure. That means the Lions gave up stuff. Again, I'm the guy that wanted to keep Garoppolo. So, I'm not trying
as a backup. I don't want to hear that.
No, I did not.
Started on that again.
Excuse me. I did not want him as a backup. That was other people.
Okay.
Confuse that with me. Okay. I said I could see Trey Lance is not going to hurt him to have a little more time, backing him up.
Yes,
and
you're right.
The probability of Garoppolo getting hurt, which means you're going to see Trey Lance anyway, I thought was high enough. So I didn't have a problem with it. But I'm just letting you know that was a report that came out. It might not have been, I don't know how true it was or not. And it didn't make sense for the Niners to put it out because you would want
Right.
Want to reduce his trade value. You know,
Right.
I mean, I could see the Browns putting a rumor out like that, and it's like, oh, maybe we put a rumor out. They'll
People
he'll
will get off our backs about getting him.
yeah. Well, if we do get him, we'll get him cheap. You know, that's the problem when you with Garoppolo. It comes with a $25 million tag if you pick him up before this whole contract thing runs out and he becomes a free agent. So, so that was I kept thinking, oh yeah, and about our backup quarterbacks, I kept thinking, how much is this guy making? How much is that guy making? As I'm watching them perform, and I'm thinking, man. And we talked about this last week. I haven't done the study yet. I haven't done the report yet. But there is a massive difference between the first and the second string quarterbacks in the NFL. It really is a big difference in pay.
As it should be.
Well, you say it should be. I think we have questions. I have questions about that. Again, we talked about the budget.
Different team has a different situation and approaches the backup quarterback position a different way.
That's true.
And most of them lean toward, we don't give a damn.
That's true.
So the disparity in their pay is going to be large.
That's true. I still think it's not the best thing for the team.
It may not be.
If your goal is to win the Super Bowl, okay, and that's my focus. Are you doing what you need to do to win the Super Bowl? If you're not, okay, then we're not even really talking about that team. All right. That was fun. Good old-fashioned disagreement, man.
40 years. Spirited conversation here today.
40 years of disagreeing on football.
Not really disagreeing for most. We're 90% agreeing.
We do. Yeah, that is true. That is true. All right, let me throw this in real quick. You were at a tournament this weekend.
Oh God, I don't even want to talk about it. Yes, my team didn't do well. However, I know I threw out a lot of names, and I said to the general public out there, or anybody who was watching, that this was a tournament worth coming to, whether you were familiar with flag football or whether you weren't. If you had any interest at all in the sport, this was a tournament that you should have been to. And it lived up to that. In fact, 2 Philadelphia teams in the 8-man brackets, lower division and upper division, both made it to the finals. Both of those Philadelphia teams are from the PTTFL, and unfortunately, they both lost in the finals. One to a Maryland team in the lower division, and in the upper division, the champions ended up being a team called Main Event that I spoke of, the team from New York. A Main Event was able to beat NWO, and I think the lower division team was called Maryland Select or Maryland Select All-Stars or something along those lines, and they took out the Chargers. Unfortunately for the Chargers, their starting quarterback pulled his hamstring just before the finals, and that hampered them a bit. But yeah, the games were really good. The facility was beautiful. All turf fields, well kept, really nice place. It's called the Proving Grounds. It's in Conshohocken, Pennsylvania. It's a beautiful, beautiful complex. Really, really nice facility.
It was. This is a picture here of some of the younger people and the field that was out there. A lot of people, a lot of games going on. It was a very large complex. I mean, you had
soccer. That reminds me. Yes, when you say a lot of games going on, that reminds me. I forgot. The Tri-State Bullies from Delaware, a team that does play 8-man and used to be in the PTTFL. They actually won the 5-man bracket.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, they were the 5-man champs.
Okay.
So PTTFL was well represented.
Excellent. So yeah, it was really nice. I had a chance to go out. It was perfect weather, not too hot, but
Right.
sunny, breezy, et cetera, et cetera. And I had no idea so many young ladies were all juiced up about these young girls was out there with their cleats and their flags and everything, man. And I mean, it was, a very nice big event there. So congratulations. On that. The Blade Brown.
Oh, Blade, yeah.
Just want to congratulate Blade Brown on the production, of that particular event, and it's just gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. I remember going out to it, and it was all like one field, and
Well, we started it at 29th and Chalmers. So we basically had the one main field, and then we had the field that was outside of the field.
Right.
Just had those two. And I think the first one, Philly Bowl 1, probably had 8 teams, if that many. Yeah, I think we had 8 teams the first time because I was coaching the Road Warriors then. And it certainly has grown. This was Philly Bowl 7.
7, really?
7, yes.
Wow.
So every year it's gotten a little bigger and a little bigger. He had to move it from 29th Street out to the fields up there by what is it, Pennypack Park near the prison.
Right. Okay.
I think it was there for a couple of years. And then last year we played at a complex in Delaware, which kind of took it away from being Philly Bowl, you know what I'm saying? But now we came back to Conshohocken. The Conshohocken site is by far the best one.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. Even the fact, as your wife said, they actually had a building with all the facilities, the toilets and the bathrooms, and they actually had a building. So it wasn't just outhouses.
Right.
Nothing like that. They had another building there where they were serving food,
I never saw that.
Yeah, well, remember, I saw that because I parked right next to practically to your field, but you guys were on the lower field. I didn't know that. And I went up and I literally walked 5 to 8 football fields.
Okay.
Before I called you and said, okay, where you at? And I was like, oh, you're back there.
Then you had to come back.
I had to come all the way back. By that time, I had toured the entire facility.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. So I'm really glad I had a chance to get out there and see some of the guys and, that nature. So, yeah, you have to do better next time, man. Come on now.
I know, man. Go Knowles. Jeez.
All right. One of the things we were going to talk about today, Ben, one of the things we were going to talk about was Mr. Deion Sanders. Now, before we talk about what Deion said relative to the Hall of Fame, I do want to mention that Deion Sanders just brought on a new coach. You know what I'm talking about? Zimmer. He brought in Zimmer, the old coach for the Vikings, I think it was.
What?
Yes, he did.
At what position?
He's like he's a coach, but I think he's a consultant coach.
Consultant? Okay.
Like yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He said the pay wasn't that good, but he'd do anything for Deion, So
bruh. That's relationships. Zimmer's made his money. You know what I mean? And Deion tells his kids, it's an HBCU, yes. But guess what? Who's better to get you prepared to play in the NFL? I'm a Hall of Famer, and I'm bringing in ex-NFL players and coaches to help you get there.
All through the coaching staff.
Yeah,
all through the coaching staff.
Exactly.
So just so everybody knows, we love Deion, okay? Deion was a Niner, so he's always going to be special to me, okay? Who won the Super Bowl with my Niners, as a matter of fact. So he's always going to be special to me. Let's take a quick look at, so it says Deion Sanders takes a scathing shot at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He said it's not the Hall of Fame anymore, okay? And I love Deion, And I keep thinking, in order to have been Dion, you'd have to think like Dion thinks anyway. And so you have to think that Dion's going to consider is going to have what would I say, an ego. Maybe that's what I'm going to say. Dion's going to have an ego, unlike anybody else's ego. So let's go here and let's listen to what Dion has to say here.
We're just having a conversation about the Hall of Fame, book, the job, and the conversation is that ain't the Hall of Fame no more. I love it, I respect it, I admire it. I think all the guys who are inducted definitely are deserving, but it needs to be a different color jacket. I make my jacket got to be a different color. It need to be starting 11. It need to be an upper room. My head don't belong with some of these other heads that's in the Hall of Fame. Put my head, what they call them, bust? Well, I call it the head. Bust. Put my head. Do that. Put my head where my head supposed to be. My head don't supposed to be down there. I'm sorry. I'm just being honest. I'm saying what y'all thinking, and a lot of y'all Hall of Famers are thinking the same thing. This thing is becoming a free fall now, man. If you play good, no, it ain't good. It's people that change the game. That's what the Hall of Fame is. A game changer. A game changer. Not, I played good. I had a good little run. I gave you 3-4 good years. No, dog. Game changes. Put my head on my head, folks. I'm tired of my head. I'm sitting up here looking at night like, what are you doing here? No, I'm just saying what some of y'all are thinking. Am I right?
All right, that's enough. I think we got the point.
I love it. I love it.
I figured you would, right?
And I'll tell you what, I've had this conversation with people. There's a Hall of Fame, and then there should be a Hall of I was really good. Some of these guys belong in the Hall of I was really good. And, first of all, Dion's going to give it to you straight with no chaser. And it's going to be a little raw. So when he says, my head or my bust should not be next to this guy's bust, I know that sounds very egotistical and I get it, okay? But he's trying to make a point, and he's using himself to make that point. There's an upper echelon of player in the NFL, and there should be an upper echelon of player in the Hall of Fame. And he's not saying certain guys shouldn't be there. What he's saying is certain guys should be on a certain level, and there's some other guys who maybe should be on a different level. So I can't be mad at him because he's not saying this guy doesn't deserve to be inducted. He's not saying this guy shouldn't be there. It's just we only got one hall. We don't have a hall of I was pretty good. They only have a Hall of Fame. So therefore, maybe we should put different levels, or like he said, an upper room. Or as Martin said, the upper room.
Well, I totally disagree.
Oh, here we go. Here we go. Come on, let me hear it.
Well, let's go back to my original contention, because I was about putting people into the Hall of Fame based on the fact that they won the Super Bowl. And I know you agree with that. Not at all. Okay, that's fine. I understand.
Not good enough.
But a Super Bowl
means something, but not enough.
A Super Bowl is a very, very special thing, and it only happens to 1 out of 32 teams every year. And so I give them that. In addition, whenever I hear the Hall of Fame speeches, they talk about we're all one team now. I'm here with all of these guys. These are my teammates, and it's very, to me, it sounds egalitarian. Like everybody's on this, we're all Hall of Famers, And Dion wants to say, yeah, but I'm a better Hall of Famer than you were.
It's the same as an NFL team. We're all on the same team, but I got stars and I got role players. You're on the team. You tried out, you made it. You made the team. Any success that we have, you're part of that. But we got stars and we got role players. We can't win without the role players. We need them. They are important. But I got stars and I got role players. That's all Dion's saying.
Oh, I understand what he's saying, and I disagree. You're all Hall of Famers. Somebody's got Ben. Let's take a quick look at a list of people who have become Hall of Famers and those who actually didn't make it into the Hall of Fame as it stands right now. Let me see if I can pull this list up real quick. Bam! Can you see that, Ben? Better?
Okay. So the guys that are in bold print are in, right?
Right.
Now, what does the number beside them represent?
Good question, but I think it represents the number of times they were finalists.
Okay.
Remember I talked to you a little bit about that earlier. Some of these guys were finalists over and over.
It says parentheses indicates the number of times as finalists. Yes. There you go. Okay. Because it could have meant eligible, but it's not eligible, it's finalist.
So Dion says that there should be like levels within the Hall of Fame. And there's levels within the selection process as it is. And you've had guys who, were selected, but maybe after many, 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 times of having been a finalist and not getting in, So the specialness of getting in is built in as it is. I mean, guys, cry when they get in, and there's so many different positions. Also, I know Dion, as a cornerback return man, specialist, all of that kind of stuff. But you got guys like Boselli, who, it's just what he does is not as obvious in many cases, to the game, so to the average, person, they saw a guy pushing a guy that way, but they might not have realized that was his second hit, where he came off of that because he saw something on a blitz. All of a sudden, boom, he stopped that guy, and then he had to go still do his assignment. They don't know, what necessarily he did, because linemen are very cerebral and they do things in tandem. It's very much a team game. So, but getting into the Hall of Fame is special, Now, it's so special that I've thought to myself, well, maybe when I do, how I do my introduction, and I'm like, I produce the Sterling Net Point Power Rankings, the Bias Plus reports, and maybe I should begin to put in there PTTFL Hall of Famer.
You're absolutely right.
That's funny.
You didn't think I go for that one, did you? You got to remember who you're talking to, bro. That means a lot to me. That might not mean a lot to the average person, or the average person that's watching this, or anybody who's not familiar with recreational football.
As the young guy that I talked to from Uber, when I was telling him about my series, he's like, what about the guy? Sometimes you just want to play,
Right.
And hey, look, that's what we did, man. We wanted to play, We needed our football fix. We went from beating up on each other to like, hey, there's a team over there.
Right.
we can go beat up on some other guys. So yeah, absolutely. But the PTTFL did decide to do a Hall of Fame, and I was part of the initial class. Now you got to retire at some particular point, baby.
That's right. You were in the inaugural class.
Yeah,
bro. You don't know how big that is. You got to remember, when did we come into the league? Not to get away from the NFL, folks. I'm sorry. We're going to get right back to.
Well, we won a championship in '83.
Right, but we came into the league.
Came in much earlier because
in
we played on a different team. We lost a lot of games with the Badgers before.
That's true. But you made your mark before we got on a good team and then continued it, as far as I'm concerned. Okay. We came into the league in 78. The league started in 1963. So for you to be a part of the inaugural class means that you got in before some guys who played before you.
There are some guys who played before me and grew up with me who didn't get in when I got in, and they are not happy about it.
But they did eventually get in. So it's kind of the same scenario that we're talking about here.
Because even with the NFL, it didn't really start that Hall of Fame selection process until the 1970s.
Right.
And you start talking about football, it's like you barely out of the Civil War, and then guys are, going for bombs. They're like,
yeah,
they're running sweeps and stuff. Some team somewhere in Arkansas.
That is true.
Colleges and stuff like that. It just goes so far back. So, it was interesting. I thought about that, but the point that we were making about Deion Sanders, talking about there being levels and in the Hall of Fame. And the specialness of it was where we were kind of talking about, well, let's take a quick look and share some of that information so that we can kind of have some context for what Deion said, Now, for 2022, when you look at the finalists and then look at the guys who are not in bold, okay, they did not make it. And some of these guys, it looks like Torrey Holt was 3-time in the finalists. Devin Hester. Now, I wouldn't say Devin Hester is prime because I couldn't turn over half of a defensive field to Devin Hester, but I could to prime. So I understand, but Devin Hester. You're talking about a difference maker,
Devin Hester is somewhat arguably the best return man ever.
In that conversation.
Some folks might argue it, not many.
In that conversation, 2021, now I see Rondé Barber. I saw Rondé Barber in 2022 again. So he's there in 2021 as a finalist. Guess that was he looks like he went from no parentheses to 2 parentheses.
Well, that means he must have been a finalist twice.
Well, it's only from 2021 to 2022. I don't know how that gets calculated. So since I guess that was his 1 time and that's his 2 time. Okay. They just don't have a number for 1. But long story short there, interesting group of people who didn't make it, interesting group of people who did make it, And then you take a guy like John Lynch, 8 times, And then is Deion going to tell John Lynch, you're not at my level of Hall of Famer? I don't think so.
I don't know. He might.
I think he would be rebuffed seriously by John Lynch on that. Because different game, different needs. He did what was necessary. He did what he was good at. But after 8 seasons, it's going to be super special to him. And I don't know if he would be too happy about anybody sort of degrading his entry into the Hall of Fame is saying, yeah, well, you don't get the gold jacket. You get the powdered blue one, guy. I don't know about that.
This is already a touchy subject for us even to just be talking about. But after you listen to Deion and the way that he talked about it, I think he really, really spiced it up quite a bit. But that's Deion. That's how he is. And that makes it worse because nobody wants to be disrespected. You know what I mean?
Deion didn't want to. I respect, I love, I'm good, I'm this, all of that. But
yeah, nobody wants to be disrespected. Nobody wants to have their achievements have shade thrown on it. Let's face it. That's not cool. Anybody, there's nobody in the Hall of Fame who thinks they shouldn't be there. Trust me on that one. There's nobody in there who thinks they shouldn't be in there. And there's a whole bunch of people who aren't in there who thinks they should be there. So when he starts talking about an upper room and I should be here and they should be there, or my jacket should be gold and theirs should maybe be silver or something, that's kind of, it's in the realm of disrespect. And that's what makes this whole conversation a little sticky. You know what I mean?
Talking about sticky. Okay.
Yeah.
So Deion, you're gonna tell Donnie Shell.
Donnie Torpedo Shell.
You get a silver jacket, you don't get the gold. Nah, I don't think you want to have that conversation.
But guess what? You would have to back Deion into a corner for him to name names. But I bet you he would if you backed him into a corner.
You get to a point, Deion, you done brought it up. You done broke
That's what I'm saying.
The conversation now.
It may come to that.
You want to rank them too?
It may come to that.
You got the list here. You're gonna go who you gonna rank where?
Right.
Exactly. And then you got, and then again, you have a specific number. Then you got coaches and owners, media. You got other people, who did completely other stuff. And some of them changed the game in their own way, Well,
first of all, let me put it this way. I think he misspoke when he said guys that changed the game. Because if you talk about guys that changed the game, the list gets really short.
I think that's what he was trying to do.
No. I'm talking about seriously short. Like we're gonna empty out an entire wing. That kind of short. There's only a couple of handfuls of guys who, in my opinion, changed the game. We're talking about guys like Lawrence Taylor, Mel Blount. Okay, guys they had to change rules for.
All right, I tell you what.
That's a whole.
I tell you what. All right, I tell you what. Next week or the week after, we're gonna do the BBF guys that changed the game.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
All right, we're gonna do that. Ladies and germs, be back. We're gonna actually sit down. Now, I don't know if we want to do this as two separate lists, or we try to work out a list amongst ourselves.
They'll probably be real close to the same. I'm telling you, it's not that many.
But in any event, I just thought it was very interesting when you look at the names that didn't make it and the names of the guys that did make it. Okay. And look at some of them and how many times they were finalists, and then didn't get chosen. Charles Haley, I mean, you talk about winning Super Bowls. What, he had 6?
Here's the thing. When you talk about changing the game to me means guys that revolutionized their position and or had rule changes almost done specifically because of them. So there's very few guys like that. I think along with those guys, you have to have guys that excelled exponentially at their particular position. They're head and shoulders above everybody else who played their particular position. That I believe is what Deion's talking about. Because you got guys who were really good and they won a couple Super Bowls and that got them in. But if you put them against other guys who played their position, they weren't as good. That's what I think Deion's talking about.
Well, the Super Bowl is definitely a sweetener. I like that.
It's a sweetener, right?
Sure.
But it should not be a main focus.
Well,
unless you're a Joe Montana who just racked them the freak up. When you start racking up, when you're Tom Brady and you play the most important position on the field and you got Super Bowls racked up, you got rings on every finger, I can't ignore that. Because look, I can find quarterbacks with better stats than Brady. Right? We can find quarterbacks with better numbers than Brady. But when you got rings on every finger, my God, what am I supposed to do? That's why people questioning Eli. Eli's numbers aren't awesome. They're good. They're really good. They're better than a lot of people think. But them 2 Super Bowls and who he beat holds a lot of water. Maybe more water than it should. And I'm a Giants fan.
Well, you gotta add.
This is not an easy subject.
That you added and who he beat. You got to really take that into account because
there you go. That's my point.
That's important.
That's my point. This is
that was a team.
subject.
If I remember, they were undefeated.
The second one, they were undefeated.
They were undefeated,
and week 17 of that season, the Giants took them to the bridge before the Patriots won the game. And I believe I texted or called you after that game. Well, we're talking about 2011. And I said, the Giants have the blueprint. I didn't say the Giants were going to the Super Bowl. I said, whoever goes to the Super Bowl, the Giants have the blueprint to beat the Patriots. And then Eli got hot. And the rest is history.
Well, that's a great comparison. So if you were saying, okay, going by what Deion was saying, Brady goes into the Hall of Fame, Eli goes into the Hall of Fame, Brady's in the starting 11, and Eon is with everybody else.
Deion's not in the upper room.
I don't even like the idea. To me, it's a supremacist concept.
Okay.
I like egalitarianism. You in the hall, we all one team, and you over there, I think you special, Mr. Deion. You was special, but you a Hall of Famer like us, and no, there's no upper room for you to go to. So
and
come on and have a beer with your 3 toes left.
And guess what? A whole ton of people are going to agree with you. And another whole ton of people are going to disagree with you. But I believe as a football fan, as an NFL fan, that more people would agree with you than disagree. The Hall of Fame is special.
No doubt about it. And looking at this list here, year by year listing of finalists, this is where I was saying to you, it really kind of stood out with some of the numbers for the people and how many times as a finalist before they got in. You know what I mean? So right there at the start, you go Herb Adderley, and you're like, well, damn, that Herb Adderley, Packers changed the game. He changed the game just
first ballot for me.
You know what I'm saying?
I think that's a shame. Now, let me say something else now here. Let's also remember when you talked about Tony Baselli?
Yeah.
I think there was some bias as far as positions are concerned early on with guys that got in. There was a run of some years where was the big name quarterback, running back type dudes that were getting in. And now that the game is starting to change, you're starting to see the reins on the wide receivers get loosened up. Because there was a time when it was tough to get in as a wide receiver. It was really tough. And I think the same thing happened with defensive backs. I think big linemen and linebackers were getting in a lot more because the game was more run-centric and hard-nosed defense-centric. You know what I'm saying? As the game has changed, we've started to see more D-backs and receivers start to get in. They're loosening the reins now. So that has a lot to do with it too. Offensive linemen, nobody cares about offensive linemen. You know what I mean? So it was tough for them to get in. Even if they excelled, they had to wait.
Let's look at this screen right here. This is just, to me, this screen in and of itself is so exciting. I want to go up one click because I see a name. We're going to add to it. Jerome Bettis, Fred Biletnikoff, George Blanda, Mel Blount, Tony Baselli, Pat Bowling, Cliff Branch, Gil Brandt, Terry Bradshaw, Robert Brazil, Derek Brooks. Ben, tell me about Bob the Boomer Brown. You know,
Bob Brown played for the Eagles.
Did he really?
If that's the right Bob Brown I'm thinking of, I think he played for the Eagles and he played for the Rams.
Okay.
Bob Brown was one of the first really big offensive linemen.
Okay.
Like really big, massive.
Did he change the game?
I wouldn't call him a game changer, but he kind of accelerated the thought process of having really huge dudes play left tackle.
That changes the game.
Big, huge dudes.
That's what I was saying about the linemen. They do things that's more subtle, you know, and I can see that not, you know, that then when it comes time to pick a Hall of Famer and you only got X number of spots, you know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe not change the game, but change the position or the thought process of the type of player you look for that position. That's important too.
Jim Brown won 1971. One and done. This is a heck of a list right here. Roosevelt Brown.
First ballot.
Huh?
Mel Blount was a game changer. First ballot. Jim Brown was a game changer and position changer. Let's face it, Jim Brown, and if I really think about it, I'm sure I could find somebody else that kind of early on before Jim Brown had some of the same attributes, but nobody was as big and powerful and fast, that combination, and did the most with it than Jim Brown. This guy set records and only played 9 seasons. Quit in his prime because he could make more money in the movies than he could playing football. How crazy is that?
Jim Brown, you know, like you said, number one, first year, and bam, done, you know. I'm still loving this list as we scroll through it, you know, and just thinking about the Hall of Fame and these guys. And, you know, you take a guy like Willie Davis, Green Bay Packers, offensive lineman, right? 6 times a finalist.
That's crazy. That's a travesty.
Is it crazier than Carl Eller 13 times?
That's a travesty. So you're telling me Carl Eller, one of the original Purple People Eater of the vaunted Minnesota Vikings defense, a team that made 4 Super Bowls, Okay. And that defensive line was the strength of their team. He had to wait that long to get in the Hall of Fame. That doesn't even make sense.
So again, going back to how we started this conversation was what Dion said. I'm glad that he at least brought our attention so that we could take a closer look into this and have maybe even just more of an appreciation, for some of the guys who had to wait, some of the guys that got in, first time in, that type of Frank Gifford, 6 times. 6 times.
That I find that kind of crazy because I've seen Frank Gifford play. Frank Gifford was a star when I was a kid and really first started watching football. I'm shocked at that he had to wait 6 years. Frank Gifford was a star.
You mentioned some bias against certain positions.
Yes.
How about kicker?
Right. Yeah. Oh, you got to be really special to get in as a kicker.
Yeah. Well, look how many times he got finalists. 8 times for Ray Guy.
And that's a shame because Ray Guy, without a doubt, is the greatest punter that ever played in the NFL, as far as I'm concerned. He is the greatest punter that ever played, as far as I'm concerned.
Ben, I can say that I have an alumni in the NFL Hall of Fame.
Alumni from where? Doherty?
From Florida
A&M. Bob Bullet Hayes. Bullet Bob Hayes.
I have an alumni.
There's probably more. You just haven't done your research.
Probably. I would hope. But I know one. We got one. So, yeah, the more I go through the Paul Horney, some of these guys are so much history that it's like, 1972, I graduated high school in 1972. So if that's the first year that he got a finalist, it hurts my heart to think he had to go 12 times. Jimmy Christmas. So I'm saying that's why I think emotionally I have a hard time dealing, just.
It's funny. Now, that's a long time to wait, especially for a guy who was considered a star player at the time that he was playing. Okay. But somewhere along the line, people recognized that there were players that were actually better than Paul Horney. And perhaps he got more credit for being on a really good team than for the fact that he was a really good player. There were players on other teams that played in his era that were more physically gifted and put up better numbers. So, it's going to happen. But because he's a big name and because he's a star player and because he played on a great team, they had to kind of put him in eventually. But yeah, they made him wait. I have no problem with that.
I'm hearing you. But at the same time, right as you were starting to say that, I started thinking, when you talk about bias, I'm beginning to smell some bias against the Green Bay Packers early championship. Because I'm seeing Jerry Kramer, 11 years. This is all Packer guys, right?
Yeah.
So it kind of falls into what you were saying. Great team. I'm just putting the name on that team. Very much a team. You know what I mean? Where you can say, oh, we had a better center, or we had a better guard. But Jerry Kramer was on that team, that won the championships,
Yeah.
And so, 11 times a finalist.
They were.
Man.
When did the Packers win the Super Bowl? Like the very first one?
Yeah.
The second one, the third one?
Like that. Yeah.
Right. That was before the Super Bowl even had as much oomph to it. Okay. Over the years, the Super Bowl became more important. Being on teams that won the Super Bowl became more important. Back then, it was more, is Jerry Kramer really that good? Or is Jerry Kramer that dominant at his position, or is he just a part of a really good offensive line on a really great team?
All great questions. I can't wait till we debate this one. Did Ray Lewis change the game in first year?
I'm not going to say Ray Lewis. I'm not going to say Ray Lewis was a game changer, but I will say he was a dominant player at his position, dominant enough that when you talk about his position alone, he will be at the top of your list or close to the top of your list. I'll give him that.
Well, Ben, I'm sure there's a lot of guys on here. I mean, I just see so many names. I just saw the one name that, as far as I'm concerned, and he's there, first year, 2000, Ronnie Lott, all's good with the world, as far as I'm concerned now. You know, my numero uno Niner. I already saw that St. Joe was in earlier. But I just loved it because this is such a great reminder of all the great names. There's Montana, Warren Moon, you know, that we've had, and why we love football so much. You know what I mean?
Bro, they could have made Warren Moon wait. If they really wanted to be haters, they could have made Warren Moon wait. Here's a guy who used his prime years playing in Canada because he couldn't get an NFL job. But when he did get there, even though his prime was already out of his prime, he put up such staggering numbers that they had to put him in, and he never won a Super Bowl.
Warren Moon was special in that, and you and I used Warren Moon when we talked about Kaepernick and being iced out of the NFL. And if you really want to play, and if you really want to show them what they're missing, go ahead and go to Canada and knock it out the park. You know what I mean? Go ahead and play in one of these leagues and knock it out the park. You know, and you know, then they'll have to look at each other and go, well, you know, they're making a Deshaun Watson type, you know, decision now. We're going to overcome our own common sense or what our own biases are, maybe in some cases, because we think we can win with this guy. You know, this guy's really showing us he still got it. You know, and that's all we wanted, and that's what Warren Moon did. You know, so we were like, take the Warren Moon, you know, approach at least, and understand that, okay, yeah, it's a biased world, and you're getting it for sure. But you know, if they think they can win a Super Bowl with you, they'll overcome their own biases. That's what I've seen them do. Right. So, you know, it's a crazy thing. Randy Moss, so many great names, Benny. I'm just going to go here. If you see something that you want to say, I don't know if Johnny Sample.
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know if Johnny Sample's in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I just, you know, saw the quarterback there, you know, so I'm like, okay.
That's a good question. You know what? I don't think he is. And it's funny because he played on some really good teams. He's got a Super Bowl ring, at least one. Johnny Sample.
According to Wikipedia, John B. Sample.
We played with his son.
Right, Johnny Sample Jr.
Johnny Sample Jr.
Both, rest in peace to both of them. Rest in peace to both of them. So many great names here. And again, not all of these names are in capital letters. So some of these names are still waiting to get in.
Mm-hmm.
O.J. Simpson, I think, is an interesting name in the Hall of Fame. Was there any conversation about whether, you know, his well, he didn't get convicted for murder. He just got sued up the kazoo.
Wait, who are you talking about?
O.J. Simpson.
Oh, geez. Do we have
to? I just don't remember if there was any Hall of Fame conversation when he was going through all his legal troubles. That's all I'm asking. I'm not.
He was already in.
I know.
What about it?
Well, no. if you do something egregious enough, would they kick your ass out? That's the question.
They don't. No, they don't. No.
I'm just asking the question.
No, they don't do that. If they did that, Lawrence Taylor would be kicked out.
Lawrence would be gone, eh? Oh my goodness. I can see Mike Singletary now. I'm right underneath OJ Simpson. Can't work with him. Can't teach him. Remember all that stuff he said about. Oh my goodness. I love him. I love him. Oh, look at all of these names. Stalwart. Now, again, the first name that I recognized as a football player is right here. One time, 1977, not a victim of any Green Bay Packer bias, obviously. One Bart Starr, rest in peace again. Bart Starr was that guy, or that name, as I said, with a name like Bart Starr, you had to be somebody. He must be doing something. Jimmy Christmas. I'm watching all the old westerns. They always had a bad guy named Bart or somebody named Bart running through the place, And then you want to add Star to the name. You know what I mean? With 2 R's, much less. So I'm like, who is that guy right there? Every cartoon, cowboy cartoon at least had a bad Bart or a Bart of some type in it.
Bad Bart, Black Bart.
You know what I mean? So, I mean, really, him, Roger the Dodger, and Jan Stenerud. What 3 names right there, man. Hey, there's your giant, man, Michael Strahan. Now, wait, Ben, hold up. Lynn Swann, 14 times a finalist. Ooh, man. That's
Lynn Swann.
Lynn Swann.
That's easy. That one's easy.
It's easy.
It's easy.
How's that easy?
Look at Lynn Swann's numbers. They're nowhere near. There's a plethora of receivers that have better numbers than Lynn Swann.
But none of them did it as gracefully.
So now you're starting to, okay, so now Deion's going to come at you. Are we giving out jacket? We'll give you a blue jacket for being graceful.
Johnny Unitas. Oh my goodness. Johnny U. Look at this. Look at Bill Walsh. There you go.
By the way, Johnny Sample is not in the Hall of Fame.
Oh man.
But I found an article here from the Philadelphia Tribune that it's time to put Johnny Sample in the Hall of Fame. Okay. I would have to go back and look at Johnny's numbers, but he had some pretty good numbers, and he played on some really, really good teams. Baltimore Colts, New York Jets. He won Super Bowl. He might have been on 2 Super Bowl teams. So, we'll see. But again, and let's remember, you made mention of, and I don't know if you were going to get deeper into it later on or not, or if we're going to save this for another day. You made mention of a selection committee. The selection committee, as far as I know, and I could be wrong, is mostly made up of journalists. Am I relatively correct about that?
Well, here it is. You asked for it. You got it.
Okay.
Pro Football
sports writer,
committee,
radio journalist, sports writer, radio, sports writer, radio. Okay, so I was right. So again, let's look at it this way.
Wait. We're not finished yet. Let's go down a little further. You have what's called, now you notice these were all relative to a team, right? Up to this point. All this media was kind of connected.
Yeah, they're all like beat writers and stuff like that.
Okay, so now you're getting to what they call the PFWA and at large. And this is where you start to see other names that are in the selection committee. Just wanted to make sure we
Tony
understand.
Dungy, Dan Fouts, Peter King is a journalist that I respect.
James
Bill
Lofton.
Polian. Bill
James
Polian.
Lofton.
Who?
James Lofton,
James Lofton.
wide
Scott
receiver.
Pallet. Oh, okay. All right.
So now, Ben, just in case you're interested, apparently
Lisa
over at the bottom,
Salters.
there's an open
Jim
slot.
Trotter. I get it, okay? But they're all in the media now too.
Well, but they're not just media. They're media who are out of the NFL for the most part. They were actual players or coaches.
They were actually players and coaches.
I just want you to know, Ben. I just want you to know that there's an open space in case you're interested. Spot there.
they don't want me in there. The bottom line is you got to remember that the majority of the people that hold the votes are journalists. And some of these guys were not journalist favorites. And it's a shame, but we're human beings. We're talking about human beings. And there's some people who didn't get votes from some other people because they weren't nice to them.
Wow, so you're saying it was personal, eh?
That's right. Some guys were made to wait, even though Terrell Owens only had to wait 3 years, but his numbers say first ballot. I think
when you say his numbers say first ballot.
Yeah, his numbers say first ballot.
Okay, so you're saying, okay, I need to think about that for a minute because, I mean, what are we comparing his numbers to? Like all-time numbers?
Yeah.
Or just for the season?
All time.
All time. Okay. All right. Well, then I need to look at that. I need to look at that. But okay, I'm not, I'm not going to argue that at all. All right. So that was very interesting to kind of take what Dion said, and then begin to extrapolate it and actually take a look at those guys who not only got in the Hall of Fame, but those guys that have been finalists and did not get in the Hall of Fame, and then even taking into account in both of their cases how many times they were finalists, and some guys that got in, some guys that didn't get in were finalists up in like almost a double digit realm, 10 plus times that they've been finalists. And remember, in the old days, they used to have you in the hotel. They come knock on the door, or you didn't get the knock.
Let you know if you made it or you didn't.
Yeah, now they show up at your home with a camera crew and all any other stuff. So that has changed also. All right, very interesting. We talked about the preseason, talked about some of the rookies and some of the things that they've done. We took a look at what Dion said. Our page on Facebook is at BNB on football, or BNBOF, I think it is. Also on Twitter, also on podcasts, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, all of that good stuff. I don't have a whole bunch more, Benny. I do want to say, from what I understand, our young boy got cut by the Ravens.
Corey
got cut. Now, the cut days were this past Tuesday. Today is Wednesday, the 17th, so that would have been the 16th was the first cut. Only 5 numbers, 85 to 80 or something, 90 to 85, and I think the next one's 85 to 80. But then the following Tuesday is when you got to get down to 53. So you go from 80 to 53 in 2 weeks. So, yeah, it's going to get serious,
I'll tell you the truth. I think Corey has already established himself as the type of guy that's kind of always on everybody's radar. as far as a running back / special teams dude that you can bring in when you need him. Over and above, probably a lot of guys that have less time in the league than he does. So that kind of puts him a little bit above these some of these other guys. Okay. Let's face it, it's the NFL. Injuries, okay. Stuff happens. I think he's on everybody's radar. He's on every team's list of a guy who, if he's available, you know you can bring him in and he can help your team in one way or another. I think, I could be wrong, I think the Ravens brought him in to kind of make sure that they were covered as some of the, because the Ravens had a ton of injuries last season. They were devastated by injuries. Their whole starting back up all the way down to damn near their fourth string of running, their entire running back room was devastated by injury.
No, you said last year, this year.
Last year, yes.
No, I'm saying,
I know that. I'm telling
year.
you, they were all IR last year. So that means they started this year on the PUP list. So I need a live body until these guys begin to come off the PUP list. If they do, okay, fine. If they don't, I got Corey. As they all begin to come off, then they don't need him as an insurance policy anymore. But it's like when you watch on Hard Knocks, they tell him, yo, stay by your phone, bro. Anything happens, we'll give you a call.
All right, now this is the question. All right, it's Uncle Ben and Uncle Barry talking to Corey. On a football basis, what do you think about his game that he needs to change or in order to improve his chances of actually getting into that running back rotation a little more seriously?
I can only talk to him as a fan, which probably wouldn't mean much to him, and I wouldn't want it to mean much to him. I'm not in a position to give advice to somebody who's already sat down in front of NFL coaches and been told the answer to that question. I don't even want to do that to him. All I want to do is wish him all the luck in the world. And whatever it is he needs to get someplace and stick, that's my hope for him.
Well, that's my hope for him too. I had a couple thoughts on it. I'll put them out there. You do with them what you will. You can completely ignore them, or you might give us some thought. But the word I'm beginning to feel for Corey is patience. I want him to be a more patient runner. Corey's legs look like they're moving at the speed of light when he gets the ball. He's like, he's out. But sometimes you're all up into the mix. When a little more patience and you're outside of the mix. He didn't distinguish himself statistically in that first preseason game. I was a little surprised they brought him in at the end of the game, which normally you're looking at, they go down the realm of people. But then again, this being the Ravens, I figured, well, they want to win, so they might have decided to bring Corey in late, because the Ravens don't want to lose any preseason games, and that's one of the ways they might decided to be competitive.
But who'd they start?
Mike Davis played well too. The contrast in Mike Davis on his score as he broke it to the outside and beat everybody to the outside. So, there was no question, okay, he's the man for right now. I'm looking for Corey to do that. I'm looking for Corey to do that on a more consistent basis, especially if he's playing in the preseason and they're not all starters.
Let's remember, Mike Davis got his shot in Carolina when McCaffrey went down, and he excelled.
Oh yeah, Mike Davis is I'm very familiar with Mike Davis. Former Niner, am I not mistaken? He had a little time with us. But but that's what I'm saying in terms of the patience. When I went back and looked at his kickoff return, he opened up the first half. It just looked like he ran into the pile, and
Right.
it looked like
I got you.
such a
I see
pile
what you're
there
saying.
that it was like, you know what I mean?
Right.
You take that, and all of a sudden now, boom, you're not cut.
Right.
And there was one play, he had a pass play, and I believe they the Ravens have a third quarterback who also looks like Lamar. They look like they got Lamar clones coming out of Baltimore now. But it was a pass play. Corey broke out to the flat. Quarterback looked, and then when he went to look in the flat, Corey took off down the sideline. And he did have a receiver that was underneath, but he threw it to Corey, and somehow they just didn't connect, And what made it so bad, I'm waiting for my all 22 from NFL Plus. Come on, you guys. I wanted to be able to see because game film, he's out of the picture. So I can't see what happened. But I did see that it went down as an incompletion. He had 1 attempt, 0 receptions on the stat sheet. So none of that helped. You know what I mean? In this particular situation. So, again, we want, I was at his birthday party. I want him to succeed, and if I'm talking to him, I'm going to say what I think. And then you take that and you think about it. And, if it helps you find, and, if you got something better, then go do that. 3rd+ year or so in the league now, you know what I mean? And you're right. Where is it? I think the Buccaneers, everybody's got a hamstring. Everybody's hamstring is hurt. So there's going to be opportunities around the league for him. He's solid. He got tripped up with his combines number. The number of 4.68 is still out there. You know what I mean? So if you're sitting down and you're just looking at numbers and you're like, okay, I got a 4.4 guy, I got a 4.68 guy. You know what I mean? It's just very difficult. So he has to overcome that, in the things that he can do. I'm always surprised that they will put him back there to return punts and kicks, even though I'm sure he's not the fastest guy on the team. So
he doesn't fumble.
There you go. Well, that's part of it right there. He catches the ball, he don't fumble it, and he's probably going to punish you, when you come up to tackle him. But we also want him to kind of, move that ball a little bit. So, I've seen him do it. I know he can do it. Just has to do it, a couple times here. He's beginning to show that. And I believe that, you might begin to see him in that first, 1, 2, 3-man rotation of running backs, or somebody's really serious backup somewhere, where he's really getting some handoffs, and these young guys coming out of college we talked about it, fast.
Yeah.
A lot of speed coming out of college. You know what I mean?
No doubt.
He's on the team, you're on the Ravens. You can't beat your starting quarterback running. You know what I mean? That guy is ridiculous, so all right. It's all done with love. That's all I got. You got anything else, sir?
Go Noles.
Go Noles.